Welcome you back. Thank you for staying with us this morning. This is Newspaper Headlines and Analysis. I'm Oluwayemi Adela. When I'm not alone in the studio, I have with me Emmanuel Oladele Abiola. He is an entrepreneur and public affairs analyst. Welcome on board.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning to you. Okay, let's start from Vanguard newspaper. I have the banner headline that says U.S. reps propose visa ban on Kwakanso, Miyetti Allah and others. And that headline, I think it's been a lot of writers this morning. As U.S. lawmakers present bill on Christian religious persecution in Nigeria, seek terrorist designation for Fulani militias, shocked will respond at appropriate time. Kwakansia, that's coming from Kwakansia movement. Kwakanso caught in web of international hypocrisy blackmail. That is coming from NNPP. Do you think this is a blackmail? Because the United States is saying we have these people on our list and we are going to issue visa ban on them. What do you make of all of this? Is it not, painting Nigeria in a bad light?
We're already painted in a bad light.
Okay, so you are saying what more could happen?
Exactly. So there's this saying, there's this common saying, it's like a slang, say you can't shame the shameless.
Really?
So we're actually shamed, so nothing more. Now, talking about the issue of the ban and the whole new sanction and all, I feel like it's coming at the right time. So U.S. brought, one of their reps is sponsoring a bill, the Nigerian Religious Freedom Accountability Act, stating things that should be done in Nigeria, stating the regulations to be made by the U.S. Department of State and Treasury on things that should be monitored in Nigeria, especially on the issue of religious attacks and all those. Okay. Then we've noticed something about terrorism is that it is always funded, but by who? So that's what the U.S. is trying to uncover at this moment. They've noted some key players who are actually stakeholders in Nigerian politics, the likes of Kwankwaso, the likes of Miyetti Allah, herdsmen, whoever. Like I said earlier, it's essential. It comes at the right time. And yes, let them sanction them. Let them bring the force of law behind them, because if not, this will still keep going. It will become a recurring event in Nigeria. And we've always known that stakeholders are the ones behind it. And it's funny that it's the people we know, the likes of Kwankwaso. What newspaper is doing is taking it lightly. They just named Kwankwaso, but Kwankwaso might have donated 200 million naira to terrorism.
Really?
So what newspaper is doing is just taking it in the lighter mood, but the real thing is that they are sponsoring these things. It's like you're saying that somebody kidnapped your sister, and the person who kidnapped your sister, his father gave him the money, or the governor of Oyo State gave him the money to kidnap your sister. How will you feel? That's closer to home, right? So that's how it is. These people mentioned are actually the ones behind it. So we should not take it lightly that, what's the US doing? Yeah, if we cannot keep our home, let somebody come in and not take over, but keep it for us.
Okay, Emmanuel, some have argued that now that the U.S. is so involved in this whole matter of terrorism, the situation have worsened. We are seeing more cases of people being kidnapped. What do you make of that?
Yeah, something I've noticed about the U.S. involvement in any system, any state, is that it worsens. Funny, it worsens. U.S. met Somalia, it got worse. U.S. met with Syria, it got worse. U.S. met with Libya or Liberia, it got worse. U.S. met with Iraq, it got worse. So whatever U.S. gets involved in gets worse, of course. But what I want you to know is that U.S. does not get involved in something unless there's a very important thing they're looking for. So like I think I said on Monday or Tuesday, there's something behind this. And there are so many factors we can state, like the drone refueling, because Niger just sent U.S. away from their U.S. base in Niger, and Niger shares a northern border with us. So the next location for U.S. to move, if they're moving from Niger, is Nigeria. Is
there a light at the end of the tunnel? With this whole U.S. involvement?
No, there is not.
Really?
Once U.S. comes in...
What are we doing then?
See, we've already lost it. I'm not being pessimistic at this moment, but we've been optimistic for decades. Let me say 2 decades. Since I've been mature enough to understand terrorism and this combating of terrorism, we've always been on this issue for a long time. So I don't see us being able to do anything so far. And if the people called the stakeholders in Nigeria are actually financing it, you don't get solution. I think Obasanjo just said something one time. He said, if an act of terrorism is not solved within a day, it is state financed. It is state backed. If an act of terrorism is not solved within a day, So yeah,
There's
no
a
light.
lot to talk about. Okay, still looking at Vanguard. Let's take another headline before we cross to another paper this morning. I have this one that says federal government orders NAFDAC to halt sachet alcohol ban enforcement. About there's another report that we read where NAFDAC said no, we didn't receive any information of that sort from the federal government to stop the ban on sachet, alcohol product. Is that not serious confusion? I mean, the media is trying to, report certain things, and NAFDAC is coming to say, okay, we didn't receive anything of that sort. Who should Nigerians believe at this point?
At this point, we should believe the presidency. If that's the federal government. If they're saying we should do this, but however, we have to look at the genuineness of the directive. So what NAFDAC is saying is that there was no point in time where the federal government communicated with them to halt it. So the thing is that the federal government might issue a directive, but don't let me say in abeyance, but in open. So the federal government say we'll be stopping this and this and this, but they might not intentionally or privately communicate with the agency NAFDAC to stop it. So federal government might just issue a directive. We are doing this. We are not doing this. But NAFDAC might not have gotten a communique about it. So that might be an issue. So the two might actually be right. Federal government might say, yes, we've done it. But NAFDAC might be saying we've not received anything about it. And that's what NAFDAC is actually saying at this point. So I believe it's miscommunication at this point. But I want to believe the federal government on this.
Okay, let's look forward to how this will play out at the end of the day. Let's cross over to the Punch newspaper. I have a headline that says Senators clash as my defense and ministry spending. Of course, a lot is connected to this story. I don't know if you saw a video yesterday of Natasha Poti Duahan. It almost led to something more serious. Yesterday, looking at that video, and then there are discussions about the fact that why is it that we are stalling on this whole a percent of the budget is affecting a lot of things. We need to tackle insecurity. It can even give these people more room to commit more atrocities. Can you make sense of what is going on?
Yeah, it's a recurring trend in Nigeria. For every bill, appropriation bill, that's the budget, for it to be passed into a law, it has always been a long battle, or since forever. So you will notice that appropriation bills are usually that they start working on it around November, December, because by May the new appropriation bill must have come to be.
Okay.
So every appropriation bill come to place in every May of each year. So that's the financial year for Nigeria. So they start working on because of issues like this. So now this issue, this particular, I think that's what the Ministry of Works and all. So they are defending their budgets, and it is all right if the Senate is actually contesting the budget, because that is what they are for. They are there to challenge the budget. You don't just bring a budget to me and I append on it. That private parastatals do that too. A finance department, wherever, sales department will bring a budget. You ask them, okay, why are you spending 100,000 naira for? Why are you spending 200,000 naira for? If you can't defend it, I'm not going to give you 100,000, I'll give you 50,000. So that's what the Senate is doing. Yes, I support it totally, because if these things are not checked, we keep seeing that Nigeria, for example, I think last year we had 19 trillion naira or 16 trillion naira as our appropriation bill budget. Okay. But at the end of the day, it was discovered that there was not enough financing for it. For you to have an appropriation bill, therefore you must already know where you'll be generating your revenue from. So if you see that your revenue might not be enough, let's say you have a 19 trillion naira budget, but you've estimated your revenue to be around 15 trillion, definitely you have to cut away things on the 3 trillion naira remaining. So that's what this is, just scrutiny and proper. But however, sometimes it goes overboard. The Senate overdoes it most of the time. So they try to justify what does not need to be justified. For example, health. You see them cutting bills on health, cutting budget. It should not be. You see. Okay, I read the news recently. Okay. Nigerian federal government was supposed to disburse 300 or 250 billion naira for private for universities and hospitals owned by federal governments. Okay. So you see UI, UCH, OAU. OUTCH, LUTS, and University of Lagos. Those are, you get what the analysis. I do. So they're supposed to disperse that amount of money for backup generators, to fuel that backup generator in situations where electricity collapses, national grid collapses. Okay. That's a good initiative. But now, it was said that the 250 billion naira was not disbursed last year. So that's why you would have heard last year that there was no electricity supply in all those institutions. Exactly. They brought an initiative to bring the solution. But because of all this, cut this, it affected it. So yes, Senate is right to work on the bill, to challenge it. But sometimes they don't need to challenge, they don't need to justify what needs not to be justified.
Okay, you are very spot on, because something similar happened last year when the ambassadors were being screened. When some senators, said, just bow, take a bow and leave. Some senators said, no, you don't take a bow and leave. We have questions for you. At this point in time, why is it that, looking at the Nigerian Senate, when some senators are trying to do the proper thing, some are trying to just, be a little bit relaxed about the whole situation, while others are trying to take it up, some are trying to bring it down. How do we curtail that, really?
Yeah, that's the human nature for you. If I don't mean to go into anthropology and sociology, that's human nature for you, because even as a society, you live in an area, you live in a space, you don't see people doing what you're doing. If you're driving, you see that usually on roads, if you're living on a terrain that is not yet tarred, you see drivers trying not to pass a path, trying to pass through another path, but you see another driver passing through the same path. The drivers will complain, we need to fill up this road. But sometimes, no, you can drive your cars through it. That's human for you. Sometimes you go right, others want to go left. And it is the fact that it's still politics. So usually bills passed in the House, it is that you pass Bill A, I will support your bill. When I'm ready to pass my own bill, even though it's right, even though it's wrong, you have to support me in passing my bill. So it's politics. That's why you see that some people just bring irrational thinking to, why would you think like this? So it's all politics. It's all politics.
That's a lot to talk about, honestly. Still looking at headlines, let's take a look at one more headline before we call it this morning. Let's cross over to Nigerian Tribune. And I have this headline that says, Dangote Refinery's crude distillation unit, a multi-split block, 650,000 BPD capacity. A lot of discussions around Dangote, especially recently. I don't know if you heard about the story. There was a time that I was complaining about the cabals and the oil industry. They're trying to sabotage me, but thank God we are seeing reductions here and there. There was a time that there was a reduction of 45 naira. There was a time there was a reduction of 65 naira. And when some persons were jubilating, others were saying, really, what are we celebrating? Don't forget, the price was around 2 something before. It jumped to 500 when the president said, fuel subsidy is gone. At this point in time, really, and I want to link it to the issue surrounding our own refineries. This one is a private owned now. At the end of the day, do you think Nigerians, or let me say the government, should focus more on Dangote Refinery and then sell off all the other refineries that we have? Because some have called for it, actually say, let's sell them off and let's use the money for something else, and let's focus on Dangote and how we can make things easy for Nigerians. Really, what's your take on that?
Yeah, Dangote is doing a great job. And the Nigerian government too is assisting him in ways they can. But however, I would say they are not doing enough, because there was a time where Dangote, like you said, made an outcry saying that the people he's working for are the ones sabotaging him. So the thing is that when you have an oil industry in Nigeria, NNPC usually has a stake in your company automatically. So for example, if your stake is 100%, they have to have 20 to 30% in your company. However, that's just to curb some things, some facts. However, I would not advise the Nigerian government to sell off, because if that is done, capitalism will be on the rise, and and that time, Dangote will capitalize on that. No, there's no competition, no regulation anymore. Therefore, he would be the one to determine what prices are, who gets what, when do you get what you need. So you have issues. What you see Dangote doing, you have petrol price at 700 and something, all these prices, and because there are still things in place checking him. Although he puts the price on his product, but there are still things in place checking him. So what Nigerian government should do is deregulation that don't sell off all your refineries. However, maybe you lease some to him, keep stakes in his company, lease some of your refineries to him to enable his efficiency. And then keep monitoring. Don't sell it off to any other person, because we will notice that sectors that Nigerian government pulls out from, things start going worse. Electricity now, Nigeria's government is pulling out. You see they've sold to IBDC and also, but you see electricity tariffs increasing almost every year, increasing. So once Nigerian government pulls out, it's going to have a long run effect on the populace. So they should not.
Okay, okay. Moving away from that headline, I want to get your opinion on this matter. Naira Refinery released a statement yesterday, and then he said, he might be arrested soon. I want to get your opinion on that, because at the end of the day, if you have done nothing wrong, why should you be afraid of an arrest? Yes, initially, when he traveled outside of the country last year, a letter was dropped in his residence. Maybe it's a letter of invitation, or maybe a letter, we can't really tell. But at the end of the day, why is it that, most politicians, especially the ones that are out of the APC, feel that the ruling government is trying to witch hunt them? I mean, he was governor for 8 years. He left the office in 2023. You could be invited for anything whatsoever. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it's a concern to look into, actually. First, it might be his own personal cry just to shield himself. It might be a selfish interest. But also, it's an outcry from a prominent politician in Nigeria who does not throw his words around. Some politicians actually throw their words around, so they say whatever they need to say. But some politicians their words are still with you. So if he's saying that this is likely to happen, according to what he said, I think he said four of his people that worked with him while he was the governor were already arrested and in confinance of the security forces. So he was concerned about his own freedom and his own safety. So it's okay. No, don't let me say it's okay. We get that. However, like you said, it's always a witch hunt. So it's politics and who is in power. If PDP had been in power, or ADC had been in power, they might likely do the same. If not, although they might not do the same, but likely do something similar just to quench or just to slow down the role of the opposition parties. So what the ruling party is just trying to do is just to slow down the role of the opposition party, which is not proper, to be honest. You do not use security forces to threaten people just because of their political ideologies or affiliations. So yeah, his concerns should be looked into. Because for him to say that I think you spoke with Vanguard or one newspaper like that. That should raise a concern from a prominent politician that way. Yeah.
Okay, so what about politicians that, at the end of the day, when they are arrested, they find strong evidences? Look at the former AGF, for instance. Look at all of those things that were listed. Not just him, even his son, properties linked to him. What do you make of that? So
funny thing is that we use justice as, like you said, witch hunt device in Nigeria. So I know they know everyone who has committed a crime. So if El-Rufai at a point in time had committed a crime, they will know. They know. But what they want to do is that they want to use it to blackmail him at the important time. So for example, look at the AG now. He did something. They've always known that he had been embezzling. But when they needed it, they used it. They played it against him. So justice in Nigeria is a witch hunt device for the ruling or the whoever is in control. So yes, he might have done some things wrong at a point in time. But why not chase him then? Why chase him now? Something is up. It's
linked to maybe politics. But at the end of the day, I like your stance that you are so firm about it. So even though some Nigerians will say, okay, he has nothing to do with that, we are just trying to, even in the FCC, they've come out several times to say, we are just trying to do our job, allow us to do our job. At the end of the day, good luck to Rufai. If you have done nothing wrong, there's nothing to be scared of at the end of the day. A big thanks to you, Emmanuel Abiola Oladele, for being a part of this session this morning. We do hope that next time when we call you, you'll be willing to join us on the segment. Thank you so much. And a big thanks to the audience as well. Thank you for being a part of this segment. We need to take a short break, and when we come back, we move on to Big Story. My name is Olayemi Adelakun. Please stay with us.